Welcome to the deep dive. We are doing what we do best, taking some really specific source material. Today, it's a gardening log and just giving you the absolute shortcut. You get all the essential insights, the surprising facts, and the actual plan without having to do, hours and hours of reading.
And our focus today is, it's super narrow, but it's really instructive. We are digging into part 388 of Notes on Gardening, which is a journal from an author we only know as Ang.
Right.
And this entry really focuses on one single plant, Celosia. Most people probably know it as cockscomb.
And here's the big question, the kind of paradox that Ang's notes bring up. How can one plant species have three completely radically different looks?
It's wild.
I mean, we're talking about things that look like feathers and then something that looks like, velvet brain coral. And at the same time, it's supposed to be one of the easiest things you can possibly grow. So our mission is to basically distill Ang's observations and give you the key differences between the types and, most importantly, the two opposite rules for growing them depending on if you want a tall plant or a bushy one.
We're essentially translating Ang's discovery, which really just started as a simple observation while picking up supplies, into a clear strategy for you. This isn't just theory, it's about getting the exact result you want from a packet of seeds.
Okay, let's unpack this. So Ang's entry, this part 388, it doesn't even start with planting. It starts with this moment of, genuine surprise.
Right.
The author's just picking up supplies and realizes they've stumbled upon three distinct varieties of Celosia. And it wasn't just a slight color change. It was a huge shift in how they looked.
And that visual shock is really the key to understanding the plant. I think most people hear the name cockscomb and they picture one very specific thing.
Yeah, totally.
But Ang's notes immediately force you to see the bigger picture. We have three identified types, and each one has its own kind of aesthetic destiny.
Okay, so let's break those down, because this is where the surprise comes from. The first one Ang mentions, the one on the left in the photo, is the wheat cockscomb.
Yeah.
It's maybe the least flashy of the three. It looks exactly like its name, like a tight, spiky head of grain. Very structured, very linear.
Right.
Then you get the two that really define that cockscomb name. The crested cockscomb is the one you usually see in those big, high-impact flower displays.
Right.
It's dense. It has this velvety, ridged, almost convoluted texture.
It really does look like a rooster's comb or, a brain.
Exactly. And those blooms are visually heavy. They're rich in color, and they just demand your attention.
Which, if you think about it, puts a lot of physical stress on the plant, right? That
Right.
huge, dense flower head is a weight problem. It has to affect the whole growth strategy.
It absolutely does, and that's a great point. That functional difference is what Ang is observing. And in total contrast to that heavy, velvety crest, you have the third one, the Plumed-Cockscomb.
This one is completely different. It's airy, it's feathery, some say call it flame-like. It's all about texture and vertical lines.
So you can buy one packet of seeds labeled Celosia and get wheat or velvet art or fire. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
The range of form in one genus is what's so astonishing. It completely changes how you'd plan a garden, doesn't it? The crested one is a heavy anchor, and the plumed one is like a light filler.
And that's the immediate takeaway here. Don't ever assume you know what Celosia will look like. Ang's visual comparison is sort of a warning to be very specific about what you're buying.
Okay, so now we shift from that visual complexity to the practical simplicity. And this is probably the biggest surprise in the whole entry.
I think so too.
Ang states with, and I'm quoting here, utter astonishment, how incredibly easy this plant is to grow.
This is where Ang gives us a really golden nugget of information for anyone, regardless of your skill level. The author notes that Celosia is probably the easiest plant to germinate with minimal effort.
That's a huge claim.
It is a huge claim. It's not just a casual comment. It's basically elevating Celosia to the Hall of Fame for low-effort success.
And germination is always that first big hurdle, right? Especially for new gardeners. But what makes this so useful is that Ang doesn't just leave that claim hanging there.
No, they give it context. They immediately group it with two other plants that are famous for being easy to grow.
Right.
So Celosia is put right there in this easy grow trio with Basil and Amaranth.
Okay, and that tells you everything.
It tells you everything you need to know about its resilience. Basil is famously forgiving. It loves heat. It sprouts super quickly.
Sure.
And Amaranth is the same way. It's this ancient, hardy grain that it thrives with almost no help.
So if you know how easy it is to just toss some basil seeds in a pot and get results, you now know Celosia is in the exact same league. It just lowers that barrier to entry.
It really does.
You don't need heat mats, special lights, or anything like that.
And what's so fascinating is that the source is giving you a shortcut to the plant's biology. These are all species that evolved to just thrive and spread quickly in a lot of different conditions. For you, the learner, this grouping is a green light. Starting Celosia from seed is about as low risk as you can get.
Okay, but here's the turn. Germination is simple, but growing it successfully after that requires a really critical decision. It's based entirely on what you want the plant to look like.
This is the most crucial piece of practical knowledge in the whole entry.
Yeah.
If you pick the wrong path for your goal, you will absolutely fail to get the look you were hoping for. Ang is giving you a very clear fork in the road.
So let's detail path 1. This is for propagation, for making cuttings.
Right. If your goal is to clone the plant or just get maximum height, the instruction is incredibly straightforward.
You just let it grow vertically, no pruning.
Exactly. Don't touch it.
Yeah.
That's the plant's default mode. It wants to grow straight up to the light, putting all its energy into that main central stem.
So you get that long, sturdy growth you need for a good cutting.
You're maximizing stem and height. Now let's look at the second path, which is the complete opposite. This is for getting those nice potted plants, or what Ang calls bushier growth.
The dense, full look.
Yes. And here, the rule just flips entirely. If you want a bushy plant for display, you have to prune the plant early.
And this gets to the why, which is what makes this so interesting. Why is that early snip so critical?
Well, we're dealing with a really basic biological idea called apical dominance.
Okay.
Essentially, the main growing tip at the very top of that central stem, the apex, it produces hormones that stop the side buds from growing.
It's the plant's way of saying, focus, we're going up first.
That's a perfect way to put it. So when Ang says to prune the plant early, you're physically removing the source of those hormones that are holding the side shoots back.
So you are basically overriding the plant's main growth plan.
Exactly. You remove that apex, and the plant is forced to send its energy sideways. It wakes up those sleeping side buds, and suddenly you get multiple stems, a wider plant. That dense, bushy look.
That clarity is just invaluable. If you just plant one of those big crested cockscomb seeds and you forget this step,
Oh, it's a disaster.
you'll get one skinny stem with a massive top-heavy flower that just flops right over.
Right. That one pruning step is the difference between a beautiful display and a collapsed plant. And the timing, which Ang implies by saying prune early, is also key.
You have to do it when it's young.
When it's very young, maybe just a few sets of true leaves, before it puts too much energy into growing tall. It's like an immediate course correction for the whole life of the plant.
So moving to the end of Ang's entry, we get a little bit of the author's personality, which I think makes the advice so much more engaging.
I love this part.
Ang admits, after all this amazing technical advice, that Celosia may not be my aesthetic preference.
Yeah, and that grounds the whole thing. It reminds you that being an expert isn't about loving every single plant. It's about understanding how they work. Ang sees its value, even if it's not their personal style.
And Ang defines that value perfectly. The plant is called a prime candidate for festive season cultivation.
Which connects all the dots, right? It looks incredible, it's high impact, and it's super easy to grow.
Yeah.
So since it germinates fast, and you can force it into this stunning display pretty quickly, as long as you do the pruning right, it's perfect for that temporary seasonal color.
And it's so clear that this entry, Part 388, is just one small piece of a much larger, ongoing gardening adventure.
Absolutely.
Ang isn't writing a textbook. They're sharing what they learn in real time, dealing with new supplies, new discoveries.
And that context just makes the advice stronger. These notes on germination and pruning aren't just theory. They are tested observations from someone in the middle of it all, sharing the crucial knowledge you need to succeed.
So let's just quickly recap the knowledge shortcut you've just gained from Ang's log. First, you know that Celosia has at least 3 totally different looks.
The weed cockscomb, the heavy crested cockscomb, and that airy plumed cockscomb. So never assume you know what you're getting.
Second, we confirmed it's incredibly easy to start from seed. It's right up there with super resilient plants like Basil and Amaranth.
Minimal effort, maximum reward on germination.
And finally, and this is the most critical part, you have that clear opposing roadmap. If you want cuttings and height, you do not prune.
But if you want a beautiful, full, bushy, potted plant, you must prune early. You have to break that apical dominance to force it to grow outwards.
Right.
And the source material just shows that knowledge is most valuable when you actually understand it and you can apply it. Ang didn't just tell us what to do. Their observations explained the why.
So here's something to think about for your next project. How often do we skip over simple, tough plants like Celosia? Not because they're hard to grow, but because we're missing that one little piece of specific knowledge.
Mhm.
Like that counterintuitive difference between pinching a plant for looks versus letting it go for propagation. Mastering that one focused technique is the real shortcut. Till the next post, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Ang's gardening notes. We'll catch you next time.